Alrighty. Are the slides coming through?
Yes.
Yep.
Ah, okay, awesome. All right, so sorry for the technical difficulties. We're testing out Zoom now because Zoom integrates directly into YouTube. So now we can live stream it instead of recording it and uploading it later. Welcome everyone to our 5th town hall. We'll be increasing the cadence of our town halls to every 2 weeks so that we get, faster iteration of updates and things like that. So we'll kick it off because we have a pretty detailed list of things to get into. First thing is just wanted to shout out to our top Open Bounty contributors. So we've got Fupang, Poiga, and Alex Kohler who kind of top our list of number of bounties, and we'll be doing this as well every 2 weeks, whether it's top contributors or new contributors. And we have 2 who really helped build design and built a website for FPrize. I don't even want to try and say the first one, and CS76. So special thanks to everyone for getting involved. We also have the list of core contributors who have joined since the last time. This deck will be shared out so you can go through this in detail. But yeah, every 2 weeks we'll be giving an update on both of these things. Next, there's a channel on Riot and Slack called Study Fundamentals, and it's basically started by Ricardo with highlighting what are the most, I guess, important things for you to learn, whether it's newbies or people trying to understand what Status is trying to achieve and build. So here are some highlights. This section is basically going to be, here are 3 things you should check out in the next 2 weeks if there's nothing else that you can follow along. So this, as I said, this will be shared around. So check out the links. And then if you really want to engage more, you can go chat to Ricardo or Andy in the Study Fundamentals channel. All right. And that's basically the intro part. We are going to go through 3 sets of OKRs that we planned all together in starting off in Bangkok. Chad, Arash, and Jacek will be giving an update on that. And then afterwards, we'll get an overview of how swarms are going to start operating, and Oscar will give us an update. So Chad, are you on? I'll take that as oh, there we go. I think you're on.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Do I have control of the screen?
You do not. So just next slide me.
Okay, I'll next you. Okay, so are we talking about the OKRs next? So this was the first time doing OKRs for core. It was pretty gnarly in Bangkok. There was a huge group of us. We had to get into different groups, and it was the first time that we were doing it. So before I get into the OKRs, I just wanted to share a very quick survey I did, which is about how we feel about the OKRs. We sent it out to 48 people. And the first question was, do you feel confident we can achieve these OKRs in Q2? 43% of us said yes, 6% said no, and 51% said not sure. So that's actually a half good thing about OKRs. We do want to be ambitious. So I think we should always be reaching just above our comfort level. And speaking to some people, I think that the first round has been hard because we haven't had a benchmark. So after we do these Q2 OKRs, we'll have a benchmark, and I think we'll be able to set much more realistic goals going forward. I hope everyone feels the same with that. But yeah. Next, is success clear to you for all OKRs? Most of us said yes, but about 20% of us said not sure. So I think that ties into the first one. A lot of the KRs were done as a to-do list, but we've had to just do a little bit of work in getting them set as actual key results that we can measure and that's specific. And I think that's an ongoing process. We'll definitely do that better in Q3. Is this OKR list complete? Most of us said yes. Some of us said needs more, some of us said needs less. Again, I think a work in progress, but 70% said yes. So I think we've done pretty good for the first time. And here's what some people said: it needs more and less. This list has the top main points I personally see in the app and looks like a pretty complete list of the most important things. So I think we were able to capture what most people think is important here. That's a good thing. Did you like the OKR idea voting process? Most of us said yes. 2 of us said no. And around 20% said kind of, I want more direction. The next Q3 OKRs will be remote. So we should be able to like have a, we only had like an hour or 2 in Bangkok. So I think next time we'll have some more time to like set the OKR foundations. And some comments are very open process, ideas solicited well, and votes enable participation of even those without strong ideas, opinions. Some of us said process not clear enough, and I think we could do with a bit more direction, but not much. It's important people are encouraged to use tools in a way they themselves find appropriate. So I think that's fair comments for the first time, and we'll try and make it better for next time. And last question, should we do this again in Q3? 96% of us said yes. And 2 of us said no. If you can, reach out to me and give me your feedback. This survey was anonymous, so I'm not sure who posted that, but hopefully we can address those concerns for you. And I just wanted to put a celery man gif in there. And a comment was, it's very helpful to have a central point of consensus on what should be prioritized and worked on. It's not a perfect process, but it's definitely better than not having one. I think that comment really sums up the OKRs. So with that background, I'll dive into the OKRs. And all of the OKRs we've set on a priority from P0 to P4. P0 is the top priority. We really need to do it down through to P4 that it's okay if it slips. So the core OKRs for Q2 are as follows. Top priority, really important we do this. Messaging is reliable. Next, P1 priority, beta is launched successfully. We really want to get the beta out. And most people voted. I should say that these priorities came from voting. Most people, about 40 or 50 people in the OKR core group voted on these. So that's where the priorities are coming from. P2 priority, S&T is a powerful utility and status. P3 priority, status is used every day internally. P4 priority, performance significantly improves. And another P4, implement continuous delivery. So there are core objectives. The key results for those, the key results for messaging is reliable. We need to make sure the send delivered ratio is greater than 99%. That's something that's essential. Another essential priority is that more than 95% of people surveyed trust status for messaging, and 0 message reliability Instabug reports. We've had a few Instabug reports come up and we want to get that number down to 0. The next objective, successfully launch the beta. Main priority, we want to have 5,000 daily active users, and that should be obtainable in Q2. P1 key result, more than 80% of users retained 7 days after recovering an account. And cluster can handle 500 concurrent users. P3 priority, more than 20% of users send a transaction, and 20%, or at least more than 20%, open at least one dApp. And a P4 priority is that we want to have more than 99% cluster uptime. Another objective is S&T is a powerful utility. The main priority for that is we want 2 times launched S&T use cases and 2 demos or proof of concept using S&T. And a P4 priority is 2 fleshed out descriptions of the utility. So we really want to get S&T into the app. P3 objective, status is used every day. P0 key result is 80% of core contributors use status, mobile or desktop, every workday. And P3, 10% more usage of Status Desktop than Slack. Using Status every day has surfaced a lot of issues with Status, and it's good to use Status every day as well. P4, we want to improve performance. Top goals are reducing data consumption to less than 10 megabytes a day and reducing power consumption to less than 120% of Telegram and Skype. And P2, key result is getting the UI interaction times less than 100 milliseconds. And P4 objective, continuous delivery. P1 is 100% of iOS and Android releases are automated. P2, more than 80% automated test coverage. And we want to get nightly to 2 sigma reliability. So they're the core OKRs. Just a reminder that like everyone voted on these and everyone came up with them. It's not perfect, but I think as a core team, we can work on really nailing these. So thanks to everyone that voted and was involved.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Chad. Arsh, if you're on, do you want to give a... Okay.
Cool. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So these are the Open Bounty OKRs. So same thing goes as Chad said. These were defined at Bangkok by the Swarm and prioritized by the Swarm as well. And again, these are work in progress, and I think we will be able to further define them as we continue in this quarter and then into next quarter. So just quickly running through these, the objectives for Open Bounty. The main priority was really to improve our onboarding, and I'll go through what each of these mean when we talk about the key results. P1 was to increase the platform usage. P2 was to make Open Bounty a productive tool to create and manage bounties for everyone that's using it. And P3 was something kind of new that came out, which was this concept of swarm experimentation that we wanted to really try around and see how we can extend the current bounty platform to really work across the end-to-end ecosystem of creating applications in a decentralized environment. So we can go through that a little bit more. Okay. So just next slide. Cool. So on improve onboarding, our key results were, and some of these are, so removing our whitelisting requirements. So currently anyone that wants to use the platform has to go through a whitelist process, which is a little bit cumbersome. Our P1 is to launch an improved onboarding workflow to reduce the complexity and really reduce time. So we'll do some metrics around how long it takes to post and solve your first bounty. And the idea is to reduce that to be a really manageable number. P2, identify and prioritize and implement 2 quick fixes a week. So these are kind of small UI changes that we get feedback from the community on. We want to really have a quick turnaround on getting some of those quick fixes in. And P3 was, again, some questions that came out around how to better utilize our platform. And that can be done through some quick wins through FAQs and how-to videos. Okay, next one. So increase our platform usage. This is really around increasing the number of participants that we have on Open Bounty, both from a contributor perspective as well as organization or repository owners that are using it. So the most important P0 kind of result was this metric of total value transacted through the platform. So we're currently at roughly around 34,000 since our launch a couple of months ago. And we really want to push that forward by, tripling that up to about 100,000 transacted through the platform in this quarter. And P1 will be an increase of roughly about 25% of where we are in terms of our monthly active contributors to status projects and keeping our retention at roughly around 25%. So we want to get more and more people onboarded using the platform and contributing to our code base, obviously. And then really P2 is just in terms of getting more traction through to Open Bounty. So we're currently roughly just over 7,000 in terms of unique monthly visitors, and we want to get that to about 10,000. Okay, so this objective, which is around really enhancing the product and the tool set that we have, and really the features that we need to implement. And a lot of these have come, again, from the community and requests from the community and those people that are contributing to our project and are using it. So the P0 was organization dashboard MVP has been shipped, and this has been a request that has come through, which is around helping repository maintainers and those that post bounties be able to manage, track their spending, and as well as the number of bounties and who's been working on them. So that's hopefully something we want to ship this quarter. Track progress of bounties. So that's again around where's the bounty at, who's been working on it, when is it complete, and be able to manage each bounty a little bit better. Then this is the next one, the P2, is around our new smart contract integration that we're working with Consensus on. So we want to really implement this smart contract to really help the entire ecosystem of bounties collaborate a little bit better. And P3 was around metrics that we want to be able to track and monitor. Okay, and the next one. Okay, so swarm experimentation, as I said, is around this concept of exploring different mechanics and different compensation models that we can operate in teams and swarms when we do our work. So we want to run 4 experimental swarms exploring different mechanisms for compensation. And at least at the beginning, this will be essentially on paper and spreadsheets that we'll use to monitor and track how we progress. And once we're kind of comfortable with it, we'll look at some swarms to actually put it in practice. And hopefully by the end of this quarter, we'll be able to come up with a solid mechanism to move forward. And obviously we want to document and prototype this with the end result in the following quarter to be able to actually put it in practice. And then the last one, oh, I think that was the last one. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Arash. Is Jacek on the line? Otherwise, I can go through it. Oh, sweet.
I should be here. Everybody can hear me, then I'm here. Otherwise, I'm not.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So research, we're doing the same thing. It's an ongoing project to make up these OKRs. There's still some discussion about what should go into them and which key results can be measured and which are slightly harder to measure. But by and large, the picture should be pretty clear. We have a big chunk of work to do on implementing stuff that's already in the pipeline, so to speak. Then another one is that we're missing the tools to benchmark and measure things repeatedly. So there will be some activity in the startup phase, placing that building block at the bottom. Obviously, as research goes, we need to communicate our results, whether they're positive or negative. Some of our projects are slightly longer term than just being Q2, and therefore there is an item for those as well. And finally, because the team has grown very strongly in the past few weeks or months, you can see that there's the need to update our process and see how we go about things. So we can start by looking at some of the ongoing research projects. Next slide, please. All right, cool. A big chunk of it is obviously Nimbus, our very own Ethereum client. We have an ambitious goal there to pass the entire ETH blockchain through it, and by the end of it, that should provide a stable base for us to build upon. And it's going to be sort of the starting point where we can implement some of the more experimental things on Ethereum's horizon, which include stuff like might be proof of stake, might be sharding, might be the new execution engine based on EWASM, and so on and so forth. But before we can even start that work, there's a fair bit of groundwork to do. Other than that, Geth, which we're relying upon today, is getting developed in cooperation with the foundation. Here we have things like ultralight clients and a service model in order to encourage people to provide light client services to others. It's being developed. Nimbus itself is written in a language called Nim, and that language is still in development. And being a major contributor or a major user of that language, it's important that we create an ecosystem, a community, a thriving place for the language itself to be, such that we can in the future hire more competent developers and sort of leverage on how great NIM is. There are some things which are still being developed on the Whisper side. I recently also met with some of the developers in Parity. They've been making other improvements to Whisper. So while some things we already know, like Whisper v6 from Bangkok, I expect there to be more improvements coming our way that still need a little bit of research work before we deploy them. And finally, Viper, Jack is working on getting the beta out. This is contingent upon the foundation passing an audit for it, but pretty exciting all over. Onwards to the test benchmark. I met with some of the other Ethereum client developers, and they couldn't stress enough how important it is that we're good on the testing side, because the sort of the adversarial nature of Ethereum really stresses clients and people trying to break them in various ways. So once we discover vulnerabilities or once we discover bugs and so on, it's extremely important that the test bench is there. On a more practical side, Get itself is being tested from that point of view, but our use case, which focuses on bandwidth and battery, is of course something that we need to take in our own hands. Having a reproducible environment for that is important. Then on the communication side, next slide, please. All right, there we go. On the communication side, well, research is all about finding things out, and they go from an unknown to known state. We will be pursuing a good documentation strategy there so that everybody can read about the results so that they don't get lost along the way. And those might be both positive research results where something works, but obviously also when something didn't work out, so that we don't have to try it again. We'll be documenting this through the wikis, through the blogs. We'll be providing updates on ongoing projects in the town hall. And at some point we'll have to gather and see what the future would look like and get sort of a directional document done as well on that point. Moving onwards to speculation, the sharding roadmap is something that the foundation is very interested in. We're implementing sharding together with, I think, 5 or 6 other groups, including obviously Geth and Parity, Consensus, and a few others. I have a feeling that somewhere around Q3, Q4 will be fairly good on this point. Sharding itself has a roadmap which has been divided into 4 or 5 phases by now. The first phase is fairly simple. Once you have a working Ethereum client, adding on the first phase of sharding is not that much work. The Ethereum Foundation expects that to be done by probably the end of the year. In terms of functionality, that will include the shards themselves, validator contract on the main chain, and not so much functionality in terms of virtual machines and state changes and all that. Those things will come in the second phase, which is scheduled roughly a year after that. So we have some time to sort of work out what sharding is going to look like, but nonetheless, the first phase is coming from the foundation and from the other client implementers. The other concern I've heard when talking to a lot of people is whether Whisper itself will be viable as a communications protocol once we start scaling seriously. And by seriously, we're talking about millions of users. Whisper itself is a gossip protocol that has obvious downsides on the efficiency front. So one of the objectives or one of the key results is that we've sort of made sure that Whisper can handle this kind of load. And if it can't, then obviously we need to look for something else, a replacement. Finally, the process. As I mentioned, the team has grown. There's a lot of people joining. There's a lot of people moving between core research. So some effort will also go into making sure that we have a process for how we work, how we coordinate with the swarms, how we coordinate with core, how we use our results into the next iteration. And the final part is also being part of the community around Ethereum, such that we don't become a single player, but rather that we work together with the foundation, with the other implementers, and make sure that Ethereum as an ecosystem thrives as well. All right, that's all for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacek. We also have functional team OKRs from UX, marketing, and people upside. When you see the deck, you can click through. I don't want to go through them in detail, but they're basically the design and marketing parts of the rest of the OKRs prioritized. So you should check them out, leave comments, and then if you want to see things on the people operation side of things and hiring, then obviously check out the last one as well. And then finally, what are next steps here? The OKRs, once they get basically in a final state, we're like the 20-something. So in the next few days, we should polish them up, put them on GitHub or an open doc, whatever is easiest. And then people should start creating personal OKR. So what are you going to work on that relates to, or that's part of the core team or the research team or Open Bounty? The design team has already kicked this off. There's a bunch of personal OKRs, and if you prefer that to be in a doc or on GitHub, whatever is easiest and open. So that's what's happening next on that front. All right, if we want to do Q&A around this, we'll do it at the end. So let's move on now to swarms. Oscar, are you on the line? Somewhere.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Hi. Cool. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the sort of swarm / idea process. It's similar to what we've done before. We tried to sort of tighten it up a bit and formalize it and make it work with OKRs and so on. Next slide. So we've put together sort of a swarm manual that's sort of based on a lot of feedback and also a bunch of unconference sessions that happened during Bangkok. And it's essentially about sort of formalizing the life cycle of the swarm. So make sure that it's clear when it starts and when it ends and sort of what happens in the middle, as well as sort of the swarm lead role in terms of what that looks like and what's sort of to be expected and so on. And part of sort of, as Nabil mentioned, we are increasing the cadence of these town halls. We're also going to have, in order to not have sort of give orphaned swarms, which sort of just live on forever, we're going to essentially just mark swarms as sort of not being in progress every other week. And then if there's still work to be done and so on, it's sort of reopened, but it's sort of like an active commitment that this is something that's still important to us. And we'll also have swarm leads will give an update on swarm progress during town hall. So you'll see that after this. Just very briefly per swarm, this sort of basic overview, and then they're saying what happened and what's going to happen next 2 weeks. And then this will also be on GitHub, so it can be referred to easily later. It's also a good opportunity for teams to demo, also link to videos and so on about things that have been done. And coming soon is also going to be some experimentation, which Rash talked about in Open Bounty in terms of having like a budget for for buntification and maybe some extra bonus for achieving OKRs and so on. We'll also work on sort of improving the tooling around Swarm and idea management in general. So if you have any ideas, that welcome to drop them in Swarm Leads Slack channel. You can read more about it in the Swarm manual. Next, please. So this is just like a very brief example of what it might look like. This is obviously not real yet. On the right, you just have a Swarm summary, which is essentially just TLDR of what this Swarm is even about, because as we scale, we have more and more efforts, and it's hard to get an overview. So just like an overview of people who have no idea what's going on. Next criteria is essentially just at what point will this Swarm finish? And then success metrics is sort of how, essentially it could be OKRs or something, maybe even more granular than that, and just knowing what success looks like and who's participating. And then sort of the left side is more about essentially like a check-in for the Swarm. And this is just what will be in the GitHub issues as well. So with that, I think we'll leave it over to each Swarm lead to go through all of the respective sort of updates. Thanks.
Cool. Not sure, I guess, how I'm not 100% on what the order is, but if people just want to try and jump on, if you're not giving an update, maybe jump off Zoom. So, because I think supposedly there's like a limit on the number of people. But yeah, let's see how we go. I know, so this is the React Native update. I know that Max is having difficulties trying to jump on. I don't know, did you fix it, Max? Are you there? By the way, if you do jump up, you can just go on YouTube and go to the status channel and watch it through there. I'm assuming Max didn't make it. All right, so maybe we'll wait and come back to this at the end if he gets back on, because I don't want to butcher his update. Mainnet.
Okay, I'm here, so I can just give you a quick update. Yeah, so in the last 2 weeks, first of all, we uncivilized new mainnet cluster. It's still like called the dev mainnet cluster, but it's totally uncivilized and managed by Ansible playbook and roles, so it's easier to change. We finished status go changes, so there was a couple of things that we needed to adjust to support mainnet, but it's done. We had pre-kickoff call with Deja Vu security company that's gonna start our audit of both status go and status react starting today, I guess. So yeah, that's what happened in the last 2 weeks. For the next 2 weeks, we have mostly testing. So we basically want to run mainnet on the physical devices and simulators, involve the test team into this work and make sure that mainnet works just fine. At the same time, we're gonna have like weekly calls with the security audit company to get more details how they are going and what they actually found. So yeah, and also lesson learned. Yeah, we need DevOps because we noticed that there's a problem with managing our servers. We had a lot of different vendors right now, like DigitalOcean, Scaleway, and we just need someone who can help to manage this because right now it's like in the hand of many people and it's just getting like in different ways. So yep. So yeah, this is it. Thank you.
Thanks. 64.
Cool. Yeah. So this Swarm, we're going to abort this Swarm because there's essentially no clear end to it. So there's no exit criteria. So instead, we're going to keep doing releases just like we are doing every other week. But the sort of it won't be in sort of the form of a Swarm. In terms of updates, last 2 weeks we released 09.15. I also made some progress on integrating Fastlane for better builds. No specific goals for this next 2 weeks since the Swarm's getting aborted, but there's some work being done. We just started working on 09.16, and there's also potentially going to be some Swarms around automated testing and these kinds of things. That's still to be determined. Lessons learned. Well, one meta thing that we just learned generally around Swarms is that they should have some sort of end, because otherwise it's easy to get demotivated, and it's sort of there's no clear goal with a specific Swarm, which it probably should be. Also, still some issues around build release pipeline, not being 100% there yet, but it's getting there. Automation matters a lot here, and the main thing here is just Fastlane, which we are close to achieving, and also a DevOps resource will be helpful here. And also the fact that release cutting, so in terms of actually polishing a release and fixing all the regressions and like all these things, that's sort of a separate activity from all this more investment work that goes into automated tests and build and so on. That's it.
All right, cool. 68.
Hey, Chad here again. So quick update. The last 2 weeks, we've had a lot of progress on our second iteration, adding in Mixpanel events. And so now, like if you go into the app and you tap around, we're recording events for like the main taps. We've also been building a dashboard in Mixpanel so we can see analysis. In the next 2 weeks, we've got a few issues we're adding, including an opt-out setting, a recovery flow opt-in, and adding events to the new onboarding screens, as well as creating a wiki page and upgrading Instabug. A lesson we've learned so far is that rather than having one person responsible for metrics updates, it'd be great if this knowledge is disseminated into swarms and it's made part of the swarm kickoff. Like a swarm will check that they have the metrics that they need in Mixpanel, and if not, they'd add it. And we're very close to wrapping up. We have Mixpanel installed, we have instrumentation and dashboards. We just have a few more issues to do. And a big success metric will be allowing other swarms to have, like to use these core metrics in their OKR evaluation and success evaluation. And I've got a very quick demo of what this looks like. So if you haven't seen it, on the left, when you're creating a new account, there's an opt-in screen during sign up. And it asks to help improve status by sharing usage data. And we're going to improve this screen to let users know that it's anonymous. We don't collect personal information, and we're going to have a link to a wiki page. On the right is what the actual event code looks like. So this is a definitions file that engineers can go in and add events, or potentially even me, as the comment says, but I don't know about that. Next slide. And here's what it actually looks like in Mixpanel. Obviously, we don't have any data since it was just added, but we've got charts for daily active users, daily DAP users, daily messaging users, and daily transacting users. So that's really important. Already we can see that, for example, here we've picked it, like this is on Friday as we added it, we picked with 39 daily active users, but we only had one user that used a DAP and 4 users that sent a transaction, whereas we had 22 that sent a message. So like just instantly you can see where people are using the app and how they're using it. Next. And also we can see how many messages sent, new accounts. We've got funnels set up for opening dApps and sending messages and lots more. These are an example. And I think we've got one more screen. Yeah, here's an example of a funnel. This is sending a message. So 31% of the users that created an account on Friday ended up sending a message, and we can log each individual step. So this is just a start. We'll have a lot more info, but it's only going to get better to understand how people are using status. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one more chart. You guys might remember during Oscar's Bangkok presentation, he showed a survival chart. We've got one now as well. So we'll be able to see how long we're retaining people and do it in a cohort analysis way, which gives us lots of great insight. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. 71. Eric? Is it Eric or Young?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's more Eugene, but I can talk about because there is 2 sides to this. There is the Go side and the Clojure side. On the Clojure side, we developed a new protocol for communications in status that uses less that is smaller with smaller payloads, and doing a bunch of improvements in the code to make it faster and yeah, and that's basically it. And we are like right now we are done with the main functionalities, and we are going to move to QA now. And yeah, so far we've tested it informally, and we are getting close to the exit criteria for daily traffic and very low battery consumption. So we are happy with the results.
Okay, cool. 76.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm going to get a quick update on this one. So in recent time, we added reframe tunings library, which allows us to debug reframe events and view and subscriptions timings. So it will be big improvement on the measuring side of things. For the next 2 weeks, we're gonna measure up performance, UI performance against new message protocol, where Eric and Jan doing some work, hopefully this week or maybe next week. What about exit criteria? So we have some number of performance user stories, which are mostly based on offline messaging performance. So once we get a lot of messages, app become unresponsive. So the main ultimate goal to fix all these user stories. So for success metric, we decided to go with user tap interaction time. So anytime user taps on something in the app, this reaction should be less than 100 milliseconds. So maybe we're gonna use end-to-end test to measure it in an automatic way, but this is actually a hard task it's a non-trivial task to do this during automatic testing, but we're thinking about this, how we can measure FPS during automatic tests it run. Yes, that's it from my side. Thanks.
Cool, thanks. Onboarding? Andre?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
So for the onboarding, it's been put on hold since the iteration 1 has ended. The only thing that is currently going on is the copy updates. We kicked off a document with the marketing team, and currently this is in progress. And what are we doing now with the onboarding swarm is creating a list of what should be done for the iteration 2. There's been a lot of ideas and insights during the test sessions. It's a long list, so currently the hard thing to do is to define which one of those should go to iteration 2 and what's the exit criteria. And so basically it's all about alternative verification to sign the transaction and log in, improve the invite friends flow, which might be considered to exist in a separate swarm. So yeah, it's all about structuring the upcoming work and defining the exit criteria.
Cool. Thanks, Andre. 83, Igor. Or Lucas? Oh, Igor. Who's there?
Igor, I said Oscar. Igor is on vacation, as you asked me to.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. So this is mostly about battery efficiency and so on. And I guess what's been done has been a how-to that Lucas wrote for Android energy testing. And then also Igor and Eugene worked on a proof of concept for saving battery when Android is in background. And I believe there was also another sort of concept that was done, but hopefully both of these things show promising results so far. and hopefully they will both meet the success metrics, which means that the sort of swarm could end essentially. And the success metric is about getting foreground and background energy consumption to ballpark what a sort of similar class of application is at. So a messenger like Telegram or WhatsApp or whatever. That's it.
Okay. 92. Oh, these are new ones. 92.
Yep, so we just have started working on this. The most work has been done by Dimitri. Yeah, it's basically about Discovery version 5 research. So we want to, first of all, figure out how Discovery version 5 exactly works and how it can be useful to build some kind of a dynamic clusters, because right now all our clusters are static. So basically we need to put like hard code, IPs and ports and no IDs into the app. So the thing here is to move to Discovery and use regular boot nodes. However, we need to first research if we can do all the things that we do currently with static nodes with Discovery 5 version 5. So it's mostly about research. There are some metrics and some success criteria we identified, but it's still early stage.
Okay.
That's all. Thanks.
Awesome. And finally, confidence.
Hi. So this form is still draft. We didn't have too much progress last week. So we kind of have scope for the first iteration, which is mostly related to our send status, which actually doesn't mean anything right now in application, and it's confusing, and also to timestamps, which we don't have. And that's it. So actually what we need to do is to clarify other items for our product description and like to find participants for this form. That's it.
Okay. I'll just quickly jump back to 34. Volodymyr, do you want to give a quick update on the React stuff? Desktop. You might be still on mute.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, for React Native Qt in the last 2 weeks, we were updating the like React Native desktop fork of Status Electron project. We managed to get the quite reliable charting, and reliable, I mean not in terms of like Ethereum reliability, but reliability in the side of React Native desktop implementation. So we are receiving and sending messages. And also there was created a distribution package for Ubuntu. And for the next 2 weeks, we will move a bit from the Status Electron fork to a new code. Andrei put all his desktop-related code to the Status React. So now we have like one more platform in the code of Status React desktop platform. And in the next 2 weeks, we will attach a React Native desktop implementation to it, and we'll fix some like visual bugs that we have, kind of fixing buttons and so on.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks everyone. I think that wraps up the town hall. Now, hopefully, people enjoyed the updated Swarm format for giving updates, and we'll continue to streamline this to make it more efficient, more effective, so that people can kind of maximize this hour. So we have, I don't know, a couple minutes for Q&A, and I think we wanted to open up Q&A, but I don't know if that ended up actually happening. So there's the town hall questions Slack channel, or maybe there's some questions that are coming through on YouTube. I don't have YouTube open, so I actually don't know. There's like a Q&A box Oscar just used, okay, to test. All right. Well, we'll fix up the Q&A process for next time. Okay, there's no question on YouTube. Thanks, man. So then with that, thanks everyone for joining. And then in 2 weeks at the same time, we'll have our next town hall. Thanks, everyone.